House of the Dragon is a prequel series to Game of Thrones and is based on George R.R. Martin's 2018 novel Fire and Blood, set to be released in 2022. In this video, we will analyze the show costume of Corlys Velaryon, played by British actor Steve Toussaint. But who is Corlys Velaryon? According to The World of Ice and Fire, Lord Corlys Velaryon was the head of House Velaryon and the husband of Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was. He had 2 children with her, Laena and Laenor Velaryon, and was rumored to have fathered 2 other bastard children. Named after his famous ship, the Sea Snake, Corlys rose to fame with his many voyages across the seas of the world. It says in Fire and Blood that by the age of 37, Corlys was hailed as the greatest seafarer the 7 kingdoms had ever known. Corlys was the first man from Westeros to sail to Yeti and imported treasures from the east, including silks. Perhaps this is why we see the Indian influence in Rhaenyra's costume. Corlys accumulated so much wealth that House Velaryon became the richest house in the realm, and he was the wealthiest man in the 7 kingdoms. Of the 5 costumes we've seen in the HBO promotional pictures, Corlys' costume is my favorite so far. Let me know in the comments which costume you like best. Now let's get into some of the costume details. In my previous 2 videos, I had complained that both Daemon and Rhaenyra's costumes were a bit Prince Charming, Ren Fair in their silhouettes. Now, Corley's silhouette, while looking like it might be rooted in the Renaissance, it feels like it's part of the Game of Thrones universe, even if it is nearly 2 centuries before. The silhouette of a knee-length overgown on top of a tunic is inspired by the early to middle 16th century. We see the slightly earlier surcoat, a long, loose, often sleeveless coat from the Middle Ages worn by some of the Game of Thrones characters like the Pentoshi magistrates, including Illyrio Mopatis, and in later seasons by Varys and Tyrion. But of course, what came to my mind immediately when I first saw his costume are the seafaring people of the Iron Islands. If we look at the cloaks worn by the Ironborn, including Balon and Yara Greyjoy, I always imagined they are upcycled from sailcloth. Game of Thrones costume designer Michelle Clapton said in an interview with the LA Times, if they live on a windy, rocky island as the Greyjoys do, then they dress accordingly. They have costumes made of heavy, densely woven cloth that is waxed and painted with fish oil to keep out the wind. Everything has a reason for being there. Clapton said, instead of a cape, we've done so many capes. It's a piece that can be sculpted around the actor so it becomes windproof, stiff but fluid, too. Now with Corlys, I don't think he would smell like fish oil. He is much too refined for that, but maybe he would smell like sea air. The textures of his costume are plentiful. There's the twill velvet of his overgown trimmed with velvet and metallic trim on the cap sleeves and the opening, and embellished with sections of 4 buttons. The loose-fitting undertunic is made from this interesting gray-blue metallic brocade from Joel & Sons in London, perhaps meant to resemble studded leather. I think that production went in with some blue paint over the charcoal gray background to tie into the colors of the sea, because Joel & Sons tell me this is indeed the fabric used for his costume. I think it's meant to be a sort of Gambesson-style protection because there is this little bit of ringmail detail just below the collar, so he might wear this under some armor at a future date. Featured prominently on the tunic is an ostrich leather shield applique with an embossed seahorse tying into the Velaryon coat of arms of a silver seahorse on a sea green field. According to A Complete Guide to Heraldry, the seahorse is composed of the head and neck of a horse and the tail of a fish, but in place of the 4 feet, webbed paws are usually substituted. While the sigil resembles the small marine fish that we all know, in heraldry the seahorse is classified as a mythological creature like Pegasus or the unicorn. That's why you'll notice in Corley's sigil on his tunic, the seahorse has a mermaid-like tail versus the curled tail picture in the Velaryon coat of arms from the wiki page. Corlys has a rather fancy gold belt buckle and some scallop shell-shaped belt mounts decorating the belt. These medieval reproductions are slightly different, but it gives you an idea what they look like up close. He's also wearing a gold ring on his left hand, but the details are a bit blurry. Perhaps it is a wax seal ring. On his hip, Corlys wears a sword with a scallop shell, oyster shell pommel handle. There's no mention if Corlys possessed a sword. And Steve must be left-handed, however, because the sword is housed on his right hip. I'm looking forward to seeing him handling this weapon. Tommy Dunn was the weapons master for Game of Thrones, but there's no indication of whether he has returned to House of the Dragon. We'll just have to stay tuned. As mentioned in A Feast of Crows, House Velaryon is of Valyrian descent, and its members often have their features, such as silver hair, purple eyes, and pale skin. While it's likely we won't be getting the purple eyes, we do get the silver hair on Corlys. I think this might be Steve's beard, with some white added in, because I have seen other pictures of him where he has grown a full beard. The character is supposed to be in his 60s, while the actor is in his mid-50s, so this does help age him up a bit. He's wearing a wig of silver locks, but it's not the first time he's worn a wig. You can see him wearing something similar before. Now, if I have one small quibble, it would be that there appears to be little if no breakdown on his costume. While he's a wealthy man, there should be at least some scuffs or signs of dirt on his boots. There may be some there, but I can't see it. That was one of the best things about Game of Thrones costumes, how well lived in they all looked. As of June, I've been on YouTube for 5 years, and this week I hit a milestone of 30,000 subscribers. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for being as passionate about costumes as I am. And even if you aren't, but wanted to learn a bit more about the behind the scenes, thank you for being part of this journey with me. And stay tuned for more House of the Dragon content coming your way. If you find value in this content, make sure to subscribe so you'll get notified when I release a new video. Thank you as always for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.